Now we will create the bottom part of our page, which is a combined filter and sorting widget with drop-downs in an inline form and a pagination component and a large button. If we look at it with the developer tools, we can see that we first have the pagination component and then we have the form being stacked vertically. Then on a larger screen, the form turns into an inline form, and then on an even larger screen, the pagination component floats to the right and the inline form to the left. Let's create this. This should be placed right before our footer. So we'll start with creating the wrapping div element for the sorting and filter widget and the pagination component. The button will stay below that. So we create a div tag and give it the class mb3 to give it some margin in the bottom. And then we'll use the clearfix class because we know that we are gonna float the two components in this div. First, let's create the pagination component. We start with a nav tag and give it the area label attribute for accessibility, screen readers. The value will be navigate post pages. And we give it the class float LG right, since we want it to float right on large devices and up. Inside this, we create an unordered list with the class pagination and pagination SM, because this is a small pagination. We'll also give it a margin bottom of 0 for large devices and up, which means that we'll remove the default margin in the bottom. Inside this, we create a list item with the class page item, and inside this an anchor tag with the class page link. We'll give it the text 1, and then I'll just copy this several times, change it to 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll use the ellipsis HTML entity, which is created like this. We'll write 31, and then we'll write next for the last page link. So this should communicate that there's a lot of pages in between number 5 and 31, which is the last page. The current page is the first one, so we want to add the class active to the page item element. For screen readers, we'll also add a span tag with the class SR only, and then the text current, and we'll close the span tag again. Let's have a quick look. Now we see that we have it all the way to the right. This is a mistake. So we'll correct this mistake by moving it into the container div. So now when I refresh the browser, we'll see that it stays inside the main container. Okay, let's now create the other component, which is the filter and sort widget. start with the form tag with the class form inline. We want it to float left at large devices and up. And since form inline only works for small devices and up, we'll make it a block element initially and then change it to a flex element for small devices and up, which is what the form inline element actually does. So because we override the form inline class with dblock, we need to add this to turn it back to the display flex value. Okay. Now we'll create the first text in the div class and we'll give it the margin bottom 2 initially, and then for small devices we'll remove that margin again. We'll also add a margin to the right with the size 2. Then we'll add the text display posts from previous. Now we'll create the first drop down. So we start with a div tag with the class form group and also some padding or margin to the right with the size 2. Inside this form group we start with creating the label, but it should only be for screen readers, so we add the class SR only. And we add the for attribute, select time to connect it to the select element we'll create in a moment. We'll add the text time period. Inside this, we now add our select element with the class form control and form control SM to make it a small form control. The ID will be the same from the for attribute. Select time. We forgot a T here. Okay. Inside our select, we need to add some values or some options. First one will get the value all posts, and it will be pre-selected by adding the selected attribute, and we add the text all posts. Then we'll just copy this once, change the value to day, remove the selected attribute and change the text to 1 day. I'll just copy this a few times and change the value and text accordingly, like so. Okay. Now we'll duplicate this whole code block since we need one more select element. So we'll change this text to sort by. And change the for attribute and the ID attribute of the select element. Then we'll change these values in the option elements. We'll remove the attribute selected from the first option and add it to the second one instead. Now I'll just change the text content of these option elements. All right. we need one more select element, so I'll duplicate this. For this one we don't need a visible label, so I'll remove that, and I'll change the label text to sort direction. I'll change the for and ID, the for attribute here, and the ID attribute to select direction. We only need two options for this. The first one being ascending, and the second one being descending. And the second one will be pre-selected as it is already now. Finally, we want to add a submit button to this form, so we add the button tag with the type submit and the class btn SM to make it a small button like the rest of the form, which is small, and then the btn primary to give it the primary color. We'll let the text go. The last thing we want to add is on the next line, the button to create a new topic. So this is actually a link because it leads to a new page, but it will be styled as a button using the classes btn LG to make it a large button, and btn primary to make it have the primary color. We give it the text new topic. Let's see all this in the browser. When we compare it to our final page, we see that it looks exactly the same. We can also see that the responsive behavior is the same. We have the pagination on top and then the sorting and filter widget, and it will change alignment and positioning when we decrease the browser window. So this page is now finished. And please notice when we get to device sizes smaller than large, the table responsive class, which we can see here, table responsive LG, will have effects so the user can scroll vertically, or I mean horizontally. When we reach the breakpoint, it won't be responsive anymore, but it will be wide enough so we can see all the content.